And we are live. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. It's Friday, July 8th, 2022. Today, we're talking about Apple's rumored plans to heavily push the iPhone 14 Pro, some new Apple Watch rumors. The M2 MacBook Air pre-order day is today. That's exciting. And we're even going to tell you about some of our favorite Apple TV Plus shows, because this is the iMore Show, your show for news, rumors, updates about everything Apple. I'm your host, Luke Filipovich, writer at iMore, and I am joined today by my two very lovely co-hosts, iMore contributor Karen Freeman. How you doing, Karen?
Hello, I'm doing well. How about you?
Not too bad. Excited to dig into all the rumors we have this week. And our news editor over at iMore, Stephen Warwick. As always, you are joining us. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm well, thank you.
Yeah. You've been talking about how this week is a bit of a slow news week in the Apple world. Probably due to a combination of things. We're sort of in the middle of, beta season. We're kind of done with WWDC. Betas are moving along, chugging along. The public beta is probably launching sometime soon. We think. We don't know, but we think. It would make sense. We're already in the third developer beta for all the new software, so we'll see how it goes. But we are in this little bit of a valley, but there's still some interesting news coming out. But before we get to some rumors, we'll just quickly mention that today is the MacBook Air, the M2 MacBook Air pre-order day. So if you have wanted a new MacBook Air and you've been waiting, this one seems like kind of the best one. Obviously, it has the M2 chip, which is going to be much faster, much more performance, but also has a bit more of a new form factor, which is great. It's the machine that's tempting me the most right now. Karen, you did order one, right?
I did. I've been looking. I've always had MacBook Pros, and I've been looking to make the jump to MacBook Air because I'm just, since COVID, I'm traveling more and more and more, and said that means carrying a MacBook with me because I bring my work with me when I travel. And this seemed like the time to make the jump. So I pulled the trigger. I did it this morning.
Which one did you get?
I got like the base model. I didn't add anything except AppleCare. And I got the Starlight. I know Midnight is this hot, sexy one that everybody is into. And if you're thinking about that one, you might want to get that pre-order in soon, because if dates aren't already slipping, they're going to be slipping soon, is my prediction. I put a poll out on our social media, and Midnight is far and away the one that people are interested in. But I like a light color computer, so I got the Starlight, which is kind of a champagne-y gold shade, and I'm excited. It's supposed to come on next Friday, maybe during the show. Who knows?
Live unboxing, perhaps. You'll have to tune in next week to see if that happens. So if you are getting one today, let us know in the comments. Let us know what color you're getting, why you got it, what settings you got. We'd be interested to know. But we will move on from that, and we'll talk about the iPhone 14 and the iPhone 14 Pro, and specifically how it seems that Apple is going to be giving a lot more attention to the iPhone 14 Pro this year, which is something we've heard for a while now. But the rumors are getting even more intense about the iPhone 14 Pro being the real kind of new phone coming in the fall, whereas the iPhone 14 seems like it's kind of just going to be an iPhone 13 again, which is an odd choice. Yeah. So, Stephen, what are we hearing this week?
So we've been hearing a bunch of stuff, kind of, Luke, as you said. This has been for almost most of the year, really. We've been kind of hearing that the iPhone 14 Pro will be very different to the iPhone 14. Now, obviously, that's not really news in and of itself. There has always, now for a little while been this pro, not pro divide, and everybody knows that you buy the Pro, you're buying more features, more pro features, sometimes a better camera, stuff like that. But there have always been some kind of consistencies across the lineup. For instance, the A series chip. But we've been hearing a lot again recently, and also very recently this week, that Apple is planning to only introduce the new A16 chip to the iPhone 14 Pro. So this will be the first time since Apple started making its own iPhone processors that the main new iPhone, the iPhone 14, will not get the latest and greatest chip. And I think apart from maybe 1 year where the iPad Air or one of the iPads beat the iPhone to it, the iPhone has always been the first, to get the forerunning chip of whatever generation, a 13, 14, 15, but not 16. So this is one of a number of reasons why I think the iPhone Pro is looking like a much, much bigger upgrade this year. So Wo-Ming Chi again is re-emphasizing these rumors about the processor split and saying that as a result of this, where in the past Apple would maybe sell between 40 and 50% of its iPhones as Pro iPhones, this year with the iPhone 14, that figure is likely to be more like 55 or 60%. So that could be a jump from as much as 40%, 1 year to 60% the following year, suggesting, again, Apple's kind of big emphasis on this upgrade, and also that consumers will probably respond to that, because if they want to upgrade, like you said, Luke, from the iPhone 13 or even the iPhone 12, the iPhone 14 looks like a much better prospect. And it's not just the processor, but the processor is certainly a big one. We've seen in the past differences in like camera features, right? I can't think of any off the top of my head. I want to say like 4K video 1 year was like you had to, or maybe I'm thinking of the storage upgrade where you had to get, was it the 256 or the 128 1 year to get like specific camera features. But there have always been, like I said, features between the two that have been separate. But this processor one is definitely, I think, the biggest news. And a revelation about this week as well that came out is that this isn't just a blip for like this year because of the supply chain issues or, inflation, keeping costs down, anything like that. Wo-Ming Chi, again, is reporting that Apple is kind of planning to stick to this plan for all future iPhones. So going forwards, the regular iPhone 14, 15, 16 will always be a chip behind, or maybe for Apple, you would argue that the Pro model is always a chip ahead of its cousin device and vice versa. So yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, I think I'd rather see a big split between the regular phone and the Pro phone than between the Pro phone and the Pro Max phone.
That is definitely,
do you know what I mean? Because
I'm curious, like if all these rumors end up being true, which obviously we don't know if they are, but if they do, like what is the iPhone 14 at this point? Like the regular iPhone, is it just an iPhone 13 with a new number? Because we haven't really heard much in the way of changes that are coming to just the basic iPhone 14. I think we've maybe heard there might be a little bit more RAM, but that, who even knows? That might, I'm not even sure if that was that reliable of a source.
There were like smatterings of a camera. Go on, Karen.
I was just going to say the big rumor, of course, is having the bigger option instead of a regular size and a mini. There's going to be a regular size and a max size. So that's going to be the big news about the regular iPhone.
That's strange. I don't know if you could kind of position that as like an up. I mean, obviously it's an upgrade, but because they're completely different devices, it's really hard. And I agree with Luke. It's like a tough sell. There are kind of murmurings about a better camera, but people are kind of split about whether that's across the whole lineup of 48 megapixel kind of lens or just the Pro. And more recently, the rumors have been kind of leaning towards just the Pro. Now, whether that's rumors or leakers and insiders kind of hedging their bets because they're not quite sure, or whether that is, because that's a reflection of what Apple is planning to do, we don't know. But yeah, it does. We are fast running out of reasons, I think, to buy the iPhone 14. And yeah, the
I
Pro
think
by
Apple...
comparison. Because I was just going to say the Pro by comparison, we're getting the A16, definitely the big new cameras, and always on display to make use of the new lock screen stuff in iOS 16, the end of the notch in favor of the hole punch. Yeah, I don't know.
I think Apple is taking the attitude that the Pro lineup is for people who upgrade every year or every 2 years, whereas the regular iPhone is for people who go get a new iPhone when their iPhone breaks or stops working.
Yeah,
that's my theory. So Apple isn't going to put their big money and their big innovations into the regular phone, because that's not for people who are upgrading regularly. It's for people who just want to get like a newer phone when they need to buy a new phone.
Yeah, Renee made a really good point last week where Apple doesn't make a chip that is X powerful and then say, right, what can we do with this? It thinks about what features do we want in the iPhone and then what chip do we need to power that. So by proxy, if Apple is not upgrading the chip in the iPhone 14, as we're now hearing, then presumably, like you said, Luke, there aren't really many new features to go with it. So maybe battery life, there will be, you know, kind of an improvement and a consolidation of the hardware that's already there. But I mean, we won't know until we see it. But there's nothing that screams kind of buy me about the iPhone 14 just now, at least in my opinion.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Well, I
and
agree. That's why I think that Apple isn't aiming that phone at people who are buy a phone because it looks cool or
and you
because
have
it's new.
and you have to wonder what the plan is for the lineup as well. Like normally we've seen, like, for example, the lineup currently, you can still get the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 11. Right? But if they're going to drop down the iPhone 13 and then maybe drop off the 11, and then you have the 12 and the 13, well, the 12 is definitely different, but the 13 and the 14 might be literally the exact same phone. So that wouldn't really make sense to have it that way. So do they just, like, because they're adding that Max version, like, is it just going to go from iPhone 12 all the way to 14, then 14 Max, and then two Pro models?
It would let them keep a
Maybe.
mini in the lineup as well, wouldn't it? But then the reason we're hearing Apple is ditching the iPhone mini is because nobody really cares about it enough to buy it. So again, it's also, but this is actually, I think, whilst sometimes you can argue that all the leaks and rumors we get about the next iPhone or iPad or watch, whatever, kind of spoil it. The fact that this iPhone 14 we're hearing so little about, I think it actually makes the kind of the launch cycle this year really quite exciting, because we're sort of waiting with anticipation to see, well, we know Apple's going to make an iPhone 14, but what on earth are they going to do with it to make it actually like a worthwhile investment to people?
Well, you know, Apple's going to come up with something to get people excited.
Yeah, it's hard for the cynical part of my brain to not take over, where I just view this as a pure money move. Like it just seems like it's trying Apple. Like, I agree with Karen, where Karen, you said that they're kind of viewing the iPhone 14 Pro models as the people who upgrade every year or two, maybe through the upgrade program or just because they like to kind of keep up to date with tech. And, you know, there's many people like that, but there's a far wider segment of people, you know, who update, you know, much less frequently than that. And perhaps they are maybe gearing it towards the you know, the early adopters, if you want to call them that. But part of me just feels like it's just a way to convince people who probably would buy an iPhone 14 to just, like, spend the extra money and buy the iPhone 14 Pro. And it's hard not to look at it through a bit of a cynical lens, but we don't know what the iPhone 14 is going to look like. Like, maybe there is going to be some sort of wow factor that we haven't heard about. Maybe there will be some sort of surprise that we're not looking for, or we don't know yet.
Conversely, you could say from a money, it's hard because these decisions are made months, if not years, in advance. So
Yeah.
I don't think you can necessarily say that Apple is reacting to the current, you know, geopolitical climate or whatever. But times are hard for a lot of people, and a lot of people do not have the money that they would normally spend on an iPhone or such like that as maybe they have in previous years. So you could argue that Apple, as much as, say, you know, in kind of putting the money into the Pro to maybe get more money back out of it, by not investing as much in the iPhone 14, they're keeping the cost of that down, because you've got to imagine with rising shipping costs and component costs and all that, if they were, you know, like you said, we are possibly expecting the iPhone 14 Pro to go up in price. So maybe keeping some stuff out of the iPhone 14 makes it more price accessible to more people. But again, it doesn't matter how price accessible it is if there aren't any upgrades, if there's no reason to buy it. But Karen is right. Apple will have thought of that. There will be something, and I am certain there'll be something that we have not heard of. Maybe it'll be a big surprise. We don't really get those anymore just because of the way the rumor mill kind of works, but we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, it's really strange. And you say, like, there's no hardware kind of rumors or anything, Luke, but there aren't really, like, any rumors at all apart from this mini to Max. So that is an upgrade kind of in itself, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
we're still a couple of months out. We're still a couple of months out, so maybe we'll get some more rumors in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I do appreciate a larger screen. Like, I'm not upgrading this year, but if I was to upgrade, like, probably like I'm someone who usually doesn't go for the pro model of phones. I mean, I have them and I use them. I have a iPhone 13 Pro now, but it's not really mine. It's more of a company phone. So, but for my own personal phone, I don't upgrade every year. Although I would if the update program or the upgrade program was in Canada. Apple, do it. You'll make more money off of me. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I do like bigger screens. The idea of like going back to having a max version that isn't a pro version is interesting. But we'll have to see what it brings. Speaking of sizes, the Apple Watch Series 8 could get the biggest screen you've ever seen, and it could be on your wrist. I don't know who needs.
Not ever.
I don't actually know. Yeah, I don't actually know who needs a bigger screen because I feel like the 45 is so nice. The 45 millimeter of the Apple Series 7 seems like a really good size to me. Granted, like my wrists are like I'm a decently big fella. Like my wrists are a decent size. I think I could go bigger and it wouldn't necessarily look weird, but like I don't know what the bigger would do other than, slightly easier to read, I guess, which can be very important. Don't get me wrong. But we've been hearing this for a while that we're expecting perhaps 3 sizes of Apple Watch coming in the fall.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different things. A couple of reports this week about this mythical larger Apple Watch, indeed the largest kind of smartwatch that Apple has made. We'd heard previously from DSCC's Ross Young, who's a very good insider, especially when it comes to display, what Apple has got planned for the future. He'd said previously that the Apple Watch the Series 8 would come in 3 sizes. So that would be the current sizes, 41, 45 mil, and then another size, right? And now it seems to be that the other size is an even bigger option. So Mark Gurman is reporting this week that Apple is planning its largest smartwatch display to date and a bigger battery inside a rugged metal casing for what we've heard previously is the Apple Watch Rugged or Explorer or Extreme Sports Edition, right? So we're expecting hopefully 3 Apple Watch models this year: the Series 8, the SE2, and then this kind of third new contender. And that one possibly is the one that is getting a screen that will measure almost 2 inches diagonally. Now, to give you an idea, that's not the vertical casing size that Apple uses to market the watch, 41 or 45. So the current Series 7 and the Series 8 are expected to keep the 1.9 inch diagonal screen. So as much as going diagonally, like it's more than you think when you add, real estate. It's not that much, 1.9 inch to 2 inches. So it's bigger, but it's not that much bigger, and it's certainly not 2 inches top to bottom, so 50 mil or whatever. But yeah, this is interesting. So it could be that we're getting, like I said, we may be expecting just 3 sizes of watch, right? So an Apple Watch SE in 3 sizes, a Series 8 in 3 sizes, maybe a rugged one in 3 sizes. But it is possible that actually the larger sizes are just for the rugged extreme sports Apple Watch. And I think the kind of the thinking behind that is basically if you're out on the trail, hiking, backpacking, running, climbing, doing a marathon or whatever, you want a bigger watch that you can very quickly glance at without taking your eyes off, the road and what you're doing. And you can get like a good kind of chunk of information very quickly at a glance that a slightly smaller screen might not help with.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and
I see it having like very serious sport features. Like I'm not a runner, so I don't know all the correct terminology, but all the detailed information about your whatever sport you're doing, not just how many calories you burned or something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting too because like once again, I'm not like a hardcore into running. I do a little bit of running for some exercise, but I'm not hardcore into that or really any hardcore sport, to be honest. But watchOS 9 does have a lot of new fitness like tracking capabilities that are coming to the Apple Watch. So it'll be interesting. And I've kind of said before on the site talking about how, it really seems like Apple Watch OS 9 is like kind of a precursor to where the Apple Watch is going. I feel like they're really trying to just include so much more than they have before. And from the little bit I've used it, the fitness features, like it is much more robust. It does feel much more robust than previously. Like the entire workout app is much. There's so many more like options and stuff for users to check out. So I think it'll be interesting to see if the sports edition does go, that extra mile. It like takes everything that they've already added in WatchOS 9 and then even adds more, hardware that even makes it better. And perhaps, like Karen said, I think that there'll be some stuff that only it can track. There'll be specific, very focused metrics that you can get, which like a lot of things like Garmin or like Polar's very good for running watches and things like that, have a lot of detailed metrics when you really break it down. And I know people who use both. I actually have a friend who's a triathlete, and when he practices, or like when he trains, or when he like actually does a triathlon, he'll slap on his Polar, but like he uses his Apple Watch for like most other like just generic workouts or whatever.
Right, and
so
that's exactly it. You're exactly right, and I think a lot of athletes like your friend, they don't trust the Apple Watch for their real workouts. They think the Apple Watch is just for casual workouts. And I think Apple's really trying to get in on that market of the serious athletes, and so that they stop buying Polars and Garmins and all that stuff and just buy Apple Watches. I think that's the direction we're going. Because I mean, when you think about it, if you remember when the Apple Watch was first released, it was very fashion focused, right? It was we had the Air Maze and the gold, like the real gold, not stainless steel gold, but actual gold, and it was definitely marketed as a fashion watch, and over the years it's gotten more and more health focused, fitness focused, and I think now Apple's really pushing the fitness direction. So I think that's what the new model of watch is really going to be focused on.
It's interesting as well, because you remember last year the debacle where we were, sort of told by a bunch of different leakers that a new Apple Watch Series 7 was coming with a whole new square edge design that turned out to be mythical. It seems like that is quite possibly the rugged watch of this year that we've been told to look at. So that kind of fits in with like the rugged metal casing that we've been hearing about that kind of goes with this. The interesting thing for me as well is, remember, when you talked about, it's like 7% kind of screen real estate, you're making the watch bigger. That's quite a lot more battery that you can fit into that watch. So the watch is also going to be really, because a lot of people who go out on, if you're going hiking or stuff like that and you want a kind of a rugged wrist companion, you need a battery that's going to last you probably more than 24 hours at the very least. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what gains Apple is able to make on that front. And I wonder, because it kind of just popped in my head just now, if it is kind of a more specialist targeted piece of equipment, like you were saying, like your Garmin's and your Polar, is the other one? I've not heard of that one. Is that I wonder if Apple will ditch any functionality that you might expect like in a regular watch to make it a more targeted and focused kind of item.
I don't know if they'll ditch other features, but I do think the battery is going to be key, because I mean, I have a Series 6, which is by no means an old Apple Watch, but if I am walking around all day, sometimes like that'll be my workout. So like if I'm sightseeing on vacation or something, rather than going to the gym, I know I'm going to be walking, 20,000 steps. So I'll just start a workout when I start walking around wherever I'm visiting. And my battery won't make it like more than if I have a workout running for, 3 hours or whatever, like my battery's dead. So the needs to be improved quite a bit in order to have this, this quote unquote explorer. Like if they want people to use it for marathons, I mean, it takes you what, 5 hours to run a marathon, 4 or 5 hour. I don't know. It depends how fast you run, I guess. And that's just a basic marathon. Then there's triathlons and Ironman and all these other things that go for many, many hours. And so battery's got to be a lot better than it is. So I think maybe they will need to ditch other features in order to get that battery in there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I actually didn't even think about that, but I told, my friend who does triathlons, I told him like, oh, when WatchOS 9 comes out and you update like in the fall, because he's not going to get on the beta. That's not his lifestyle, which is fine. Don't get on, especially don't get on the beta if you don't have backup devices. It can be very, very, very hard on your devices. But I told my friend that he should try it out, like try training for his training, just to see what it's like. Because there is that triathlon setting now where you don't have to. You just have to press triathlon and go. It'll automatically detect when you're running, cycling, or swimming based on the motions and the sensors in the watch. And I'm really curious to see how it works because I'm not fit enough to go try triathlon just to see if it works as well as Apple says it does. But I'm curious if that'll be enough for him to ditch his Polar when he's doing his hardcore workouts or his training, or if he'll still need some of the stuff that they have there. I'm curious to get his opinion on that. I'm really excited for him to try it out. And he didn't even know because he's not super connected to the tech world, but he was like, "Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that they were coming out with more fitness stuff. I'll have to check it out when it launches on his Series 6."
I wonder if that new model will have to have some kind of specialized workout low power mode in order for the battery to last. I mean, because I'm just thinking about like serious athletes having a workout running for 8 hours or however long. I mean, the battery would have to be many times better than it is now. So I wonder if there's going to be some kind of special mode for that, where you won't be able to check the weather or your messages or whatever.
Yeah, that was a rumor about WatchOS 9 and WWDC. There was that Mark Gurman told us that Apple had this big low power kind of upgrade coming, where it would be a low power mode, but your watch wouldn't become useless anymore. And then that didn't materialize.
Right.
So it is very possible that is actually like that exists, but it's a hardware thing that is coming with the new watches, as opposed to a software thing that is coming to kind of all of the watches. Or maybe it is both, or maybe it is a software thing, but Apple is just waiting for, and Karen, like you said, maybe it's something that will debut with the rugged watch because it doesn't make any sense that you would have a watch that is, trying to keep track of the weather and your messages and your emails and stuff like that, but it can't go the distance with you when you're trying to do a longer distance workout. And like you said, the exact kind of people this sounds like this watch is being targeted at, they're the people who really pushing the boundaries of like how long you exercise. So it's not like, I pop to the gym and I'll do 45 minutes or an hour. Like I don't need kind of more than that, but anyone else who buys like an extreme sports edition sort of Apple Watch, I assume, is going to expect that kind of high standard of battery. But yeah, the size stuff overall I think is really interesting too. And I think now we've heard it positioned like this, the larger watch just being that rugged version makes a lot more sense. I'm kind of with Luke. The 45mm of the Series 7 for me really is big enough, I think, for most people most times, and the 41 as well as the lower option if you don't need that size. So to me, it kind of makes more sense to say there is a bigger watch, but it's a very specialized kind of type of watch, as opposed to just here's one new size of every watch that we make. So that's a lot to choose from. If you like to go in and have to think, do I want the Series 8? Do I want the SE2? Do I want this rugged watch? Do I want presumably one of the previous gen watches that's still around? And then do I want 41mm, 45mm, 47, 48? Like, it's just too much. It's just too much going on.
I know. And Stephen, I'm sure you think back to when you worked at the Apple Store and having all those SKUs for one product and having to stock all those different variations of a single product. Like, what a huge pain that would be.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's cool. It's funny though, because we've been hearing a lot about this rugged Apple Watch a lot. But one thing that has been going around that I'm cool to talk about is all the new adverts for the current Watch Series 7, where it's like, hey, look how rugged this watch is and how durable it is. And we actually did see this when the Series 7 was launched last year. Apple started, possibly intentionally, to maybe troll the insiders or whatever, with a video of a watch like being battered by all these giant rocks and stuff like that. And the video was playing, and I remember watching it and thinking, it's the rugged Apple Watch that we've been hearing about. And then, or it's the new design or whatever. And then as soon as, so Apple, now we're hearing, oh, maybe there's a special rugged watch that, can really take a beating. All of a sudden, Apple is advertising that the Series 7 can already take a beating, and there's a new advert where they're hitting tennis balls and rocks at it and stuff like that, which I thought was really funny. And I wonder if, as strange as it sounds, maybe subconsciously Apple is already trying to plant the seeds of the Apple Watch is rugged. Hard Knocks is the name of the campaign. Maybe
I'm totally
lay the groundwork of that already.
I'm totally tinfoil hat on this. I totally think I understand that ad campaigns are a big thing. I understand they don't just whip them up in a night, but like I'm totally tinfoil hat on this one. I definitely think that it's Apple planting the seed that like, okay, there is going to be a special version of the watch, but it's not necessarily going to be more rugged. It's going to be more focused on something else, like more running focused, more extreme sports focused. Because the Apple Watch is already rugged enough. That's their messaging.
Maybe this is the leak. Maybe someone got inside info about an upcoming rugged Apple Watch marketing campaign. And
that's totally
put
possible.
2 and 2 together and thought, oh, there's a new rugged Apple Watch coming out.
The existence of those ads makes me think that this rumored new Apple Watch that's supposed to be coming out is not going to be the quote unquote rugged Apple Watch. I don't buy that that's going to be the new thing. I do buy that it will be like an Explorer watch or, you know, like a sports extreme watch or something like that. But I can't imagine it's going to be rugged forward, if that makes sense, because there's been so much emphasis in these ads on how rugged the watch already is. So we'll see. And
there are cases that exist that aren't particularly expensive all the time. Some of them can be a little more than others, but like if you really wanted to protect your watch a little bit extra, you could grab a case for, $30-$40 at most. And what's great about those cases, they're not terribly expensive, like you said, but what's great about them is that you can take them on and off. So if you don't love the look of it, but you're going mountain climbing today, then put it on for mountain climbing, and then you can take it off when you go out to dinner. So there's no need to buy a special watch for that. Yeah, and that's one of the beauties of just the Apple Watch in general, is like, or any watch really, just being able to like switch the band out for, if you need a sporty band that you can sweat in and then you want to go out for dinner, you can have a leather or a metal one. And it's same with the cases. The cases can be swapped out too if you have like a more sleek case that you like to carry it around just because you like a little bit of that extra protection, or maybe you like a screen protector in the Apple Watch. I know a lot of people do. It's easy to kind of like mix and match. So I don't know if Apple needs to worry about, making something super chunky or super, durable, more durable than the Series 7. So
that's something that's really interesting. Actually, we're talking about a whole new, possibly product line of Apple Watch, but we've not heard anything, and we've certainly not discussed, what that might entail for the accessory side of it. When we have the Nike Apple Watch, which is, very sporty, we have a kind of a custom set of bands to go with that. The Hermes, that's meant to be, like a much more premium one that comes with its own special set of bands. So I wonder, you have to imagine that if there is a rugged Apple Watch kind of in the pipeline, that will also come with bands to that effect that are extra durable or extra rugged, or can be swapped out at a moment's notice, or maybe they're like machine washable or something like that. So that'd be really cool to see, because if we're getting a rugged watch, you assume that they'll, there's no point having a rugged watch and then a flimsy silicon loop to go with it that's going to be torn to shreds when you're climbing or whatever. So that's exciting too.
I bet that makes sense, that they would have like a big thick rugged band for this Explorer watch.
Quick little update about the MacBook Air. One of our commenters is going to put it up on the screen here. Did order a M2 MacBook Air in the midnight colorway. They did get delivery for July 15th, which is the earliest day you can get it, next week. But they tried to order the 67-watt charger, and that would have pushed the delivery date back 2 weeks already. So definitely, if you're thinking about ordering one, if you wanted to get pre-order, you're probably going to want to start doing that soon, because it sounds like for certain features and certain options are going to be slipping already. So just thanks.
It's interesting. I would not have predicted that the charger would be the feature that would push your delivery date out. I thought it was going to be the midnight color. Interesting.
It is expensive though, so I wonder if they didn't make that many in anticipation of it being, although it is like fast charging on the MacBook, I think is a big deal. So I'm surprised that they're not maybe more prepared for people to buy that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Shrevster. That's interesting news.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know. Base model too, they also said. So that's nice. Yeah, so interestingly enough, well, we're talking about rumors for everything. Apparently, there is a bunch of new Apple products that have potentially been leaked in some software. Steven, what's going on
Yeah,
with this?
we're not. I'm not totally sold on this, but this is a really interesting rumor from someone who is like a reverse engineer who's just been kind of digging around in some Apple software. They didn't want to share kind of what software that it was, or at least us to share that kind of publicly, but just that there is software that's publicly available that they've been digging around in, and that other people have been and shared stuff kind of previously that contains a bunch of, these like code names that you get when you're referring to possible unreleased devices. We've already seen them previously. So Mark Gurman, when he talks about the new upcoming iPhone 14, he's like referred to like the iPhone 14 and the iPhone 14 Pro, and he gives their code names like Deep 73 and 74, I think they are for the Pro. So this kind of includes like a rundown of all these different things we might be expecting, and I don't think there's anything kind of revelatory in there, but it is just kind of nice to cross-reference. So, like for instance, there's the new there's a new HomePod referenced in there. There are some Macs which you would assume are M2 Macs that we've got coming. We've heard a bunch of those. One interesting one was that there are kind of 9 watch models, which is why I had in my head about maybe there are 3 models in 3 different sizes, but equally that could be 2 models and they come in GPS and cellular, and then maybe 3 Explorer ones or whatever. So it's hard to see how that would follow, but 9 watches, a couple of different iPads, which are interesting, and then of course the iPhone 14s that we've seen. So we've been hearing, kind of a lot about what Apple has planned. It's going to be a huge kind of fall program of upgrades, an expensive fall for all of us, no doubt. But yeah, like I said, I don't think there's anything kind of mind blowing. The HomePod is cool to see that in there, because we've kind of heard that Apple does indeed have a new HomePod that's coming, and a new Macs as well, new M2 Macs. Interesting. Someone was asking in the comments actually about the 15-inch MacBook Air, like an M2 version of that, and what we think and where it's coming. I think it's a great idea. It makes sense to have a larger MacBook Air that isn't necessarily kind of pro money. So this could be one of those devices that is, coming in the next few months or whatever. So yeah, lots of new stuff on the horizon, which I think is very, very exciting, and proof that, if you sort of dig deep enough in Apple software, you can always find kind of something pretty juicy, which is cool.
Yeah, Marcia in the comments was asking if we think we'll get an M2 15-inch MacBook Air, and if so, when. My personal take is I think we will. I think we are gonna. I don't know if it'll be 15-inch 100%. I don't exactly know, but I do think they are going to experiment with like a bigger MacBook Air display and see how that goes. I think it would be a great product, honestly, because if like the MacBook Air is potentially has one giant weakness, is that it's only in the one size. And I think some people really like a bigger screen for lots of different applications. And I think it would be an easy sell. I really do. And when it comes to when, honestly, who knows? No one really knows. It seems like one of those things, the fact that they didn't announce it alongside the regular MacBook Air, which, some of us, there was some rumblings that maybe that would happen. It's kind of like, maybe it's going to wait. Maybe they're still trying to figure out where it fits. Maybe because they are still selling that, that 13-inch Pro, that maybe they want to give that a little room to breathe before they add in another model to the lineup. I'm not sure. But so when, I don't know. Will we get it? I think so. I think we'll get some sort of bigger MacBook Air. I think we've heard enough rumblings that something will shake out. But
I would guess
again,
a year from now. I don't think they would announce it mid-year. I think it would be a year from now. I mean, if you think about it, the 2 computers that they just announced, the MacBook, the M2 MacBook Pro and the M2 MacBook Air, they both came out just in time for back to school, because those are the 2 models that are really aimed at college students. I mean, not just college students, obviously, but they are specifically geared for students. They're on the lower end. They are going to be sufficient for almost any student between those 2 models, almost any student in any field outside of like somebody going to film school or, or art school, for example. I have a child in art school, and they have a very specific, they have a Wacom, like that's way more expensive than a MacBook kind of thing. But other than like very specialized fields like that, most college students, most high school students, and teachers and college professors, like those are the two models that are going to be perfect for those audiences. So it would, the 15-inch MacBook Air, if there ever is going to be one, I think would also still be aimed at that market. So I think that's good timing to release a computer like that, but that's just a theory.
Yeah, I was kind of going to say something similar to Karen, which is like if they didn't put it out with the 13-inch MacBook Air, I don't feel like they'd do it. You know, they're not going to do it in the next 2 or 3 months. Like that would be a bit. So maybe in like a year from now, or maybe kind of halfway between then. So possibly in like the spring, like the very early spring, as like a. They might upgrade the MacBook Air with like a slightly, because you know we're still waiting on. We've only got the very first iteration of the M2 chip, right? We're still waiting on what we presume will be, you know, M2 Pro, M2 Max, maybe M2 Ultra, maybe Extreme, or whatever. So you have to wonder, once the next steps up in M2 come out, will there be Macs to take advantage of those? Probably yes, like the 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook, but will there also be new versions of existing Macs? So for instance, when now we have the M2 MacBook Air, could we get like an M2 Max MacBook Air? And it might be, you know, slightly bigger because that might help with the cooling and things like that. So yeah, I think the 15-inch form factor is pretty much nailed on with the M2, but I think considering it didn't, like, and with Karen, like, because it didn't just come out, I think we're still, you know, maybe either 6 or 12 months away. We're like a product cycle or a half away. You know, we're not talking in the next few weeks or months.
Yeah, totally. And unless for some weird reason there was the only reason why it got held up was maybe supply chain issues, but my guess is probably not. If the only difference between them is truly just the size of it, then I don't think that would probably be the case. So yeah, I think maybe betting on at least about a year to maybe, you know, 6 months from now might be a good bet. But well, the other thing is we never know. They could launch it tomorrow for all we know. Apple can do whatever it wants.
Yeah, we could get a press release in 5 minutes. Who knows?
That's true. It's not like that's a good point. It's not like it would be a model that really needs an introduction if literally all it is just slightly bigger. I mean, I guess it would be a first for them, so maybe they would want to put a little, you know, pizzazz behind the announcement. But, you know, we've seen them launch, you know, products that we thought would maybe I still am surprised that the AirPods Max were launched in a press release. Like, I know most AirPods. Yeah, most AirPods have been, so maybe it's not that, but like I just thought the Max was so different, I guess, in a lot of ways. Yeah. It was so special and it was a very Apple product, you know. It's very sleek, it's very unique in a lot of ways. It doesn't really look like a lot of other headsets.
Although you could say that makes sense. Yeah, but because you can't, it's very difficult. It's very easy to demonstrate on a screen at a keynote or a press conference or whatever. Here's how the new MacBook is better than, you know, the previous one or whatever. But because it was a new product and because it's really a listening experience, I don't know how much, maybe there isn't that much value in dedicating, you know, keynote time to it. So maybe it doesn't. And yeah, the AirPods Pro are a huge breakthrough for Apple, you know, first ever noise canceling earbuds the company had done. And that was just a random press release towards the end of 2019. So could happen.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. Like, how do you really, what really is the point of demonstrating AirPods on a stage?
Because you're just saying, like, you're just saying, like, oh, how do they sound? We'll take our word for it, like, you know. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're going to show people dancing around on stage.
You say that about the studio display of the MacBook Pro, but there are other features. Whereas when it comes to like AirPods Max, all you want to know is, well, do they sound good? So.
Right.
You can't tell someone about that. You have to really listen to it.
It's true. It's very much a like visceral experience in that way, right? Like the listening, the feel of the headphones on your head. Like it's all very personal. It's all very, very you know, hands-on experience. Which maybe you're right. Maybe a keynote just isn't the place to showcase that. That's mostly, we've talked about how we're in a little bit of a news dearth recently. Just I think it's the way the cycle's going currently.
Do you want to talk about the clownfish wallpaper really quickly?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's throw it back. Bell bottoms are back, mullets are back, clownfish is back.
Did we have mullets in 2007? Like, is like?
Oh,
Oh
yeah,
my
mullets
gosh,
are back,
Steven,
baby.
I guess you're not around younger people anymore. But the teenager, every time I see a group of teenagers, at least a couple of the boys have a full-on mullet. I don't mean slightly mullety. I mean a full-on mullet where like the sides are shaved and the back is long. That is coming back very in style.
No, I can imagine that just now, but like I don't remember any mullets in 2007. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. I don't know. But
Luke just meant in general, like what's old is new again. No, the last time mullets were in style were when I was a teenager. They were not in style any time in between, other than very ironically with a very select hipster crowd.
Yeah.
So if you didn't know what we were talking about, this week in the iOS 16 beta, some people have discovered that there is a new iPhone clownfish wallpaper, harking back to the very first iPhone when Steve Jobs announced it, 2007. It had the famous, Finding Nemo wallpaper, which has never been like publicly available in an iOS release or for iPhone, as far as I can tell. Anyway, you can obviously go online and find a good equivalent or whatever, but Apple has never officially released it. And then all of a sudden, iOS 16 Beta 3 came out this week, and lo and behold, the clownfish wallpaper is here. And not just the clownfish wallpaper, but it's like a really cool, it's got like 3D elements to it that interact with the lock screen changes on iOS 16. So, you've got bits of like anemone like floating over your time and that sort of thing. So, it's just a really cool little Easter egg that Apple has kind of popped into there, which is really awesome. So if you're on the iOS 16 developer beta, that is probably available to you just now. And the public betas, we don't know when they're coming, but when we do, it might well be present in there, and hopefully in the public release in the fall too.
Yeah,
I think it's funny that was never an official Apple wallpaper. I thought it was because it was so popular. I guess people were just downloading it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've done that before. Apple.
I associated with Steve Jobs.
Was there like an iOS 9 or 10 wallpaper that was like used in all the marketing and stuff like that? And then it didn't come when the software shipped. So it's not unheard of, but yes, it's one that is so, maybe it's like a little 15 years of iPhone celebration kind of thing. But yeah, it just popped up unannounced this week, and very cool.
I think it's just I think some Apple engineer, some software engineer was like, hey, remember this thing we did like 15 years ago? Well, now we can make it really cool because now it interacts with the lock screen, and there's like I can make like a 3D, depth effect so that the time looks partially hidden by it. And I think it just was kind of the right time to bring it back in a couple different ways. And I think somebody on the team had a passion for it, and they made it happen. And then Apple was like, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's do it. It's a no brainer.
And that's the cool thing. It's like I said, it's clearly an iOS 16 wallpaper, so it's not just kind of turned up there by accident. So yeah, very exciting.
Yeah. All right, before we wrap up the show, we're going to talk a little bit about our favorite Apple TV Plus shows, because honestly,
there's nothing else to do.
Not only that, I feel like Apple TV.
I've been wanting to do this.
Yes,
I've been dying to do this for many weeks, but we just haven't had time because there's been so much other stuff going on. So I'm glad to have the chance to talk about Apple TV, because I love to talk about television.
Yeah, and Apple TV Plus, I feel like is not quite. It doesn't quite get the recognition it deserves. I think there's some really good stuff on there. Mm-hmm. And even I'll even call myself out. I constantly kind of forget that I have Apple TV Plus, and I constantly don't watch shows, even though I'm really interested in them. But it's just like I'm one of those silly people who I've subscribed to all of them, right? So I have my Prime, I have my Netflix, I have my Disney, I have my Apple TV Plus, and it's just like I have a different one just to watch Drag Race because I love Drag Race so much. So like I definitely am feeling a bit of the subscriber fatigue. But let's talk about some of our favorite shows. Let's give you a little bit. We won't get into like tons of spoilers, but we'll kind of give you the basic premise and maybe tell you why we love it so much. Karen, because you've been wanting to do this forever, please go first. Take it away.
Well, I want to start by saying I did not want to subscribe to Apple TV Plus. I had no intention of doing so. And then when I got the free subscriber period, when I bought a new iPhone, I think it was last year, maybe 2 years ago. I don't know. I've completely lost track of time in COVID. But so I got the free subscription period, and I was like, oh, I'm never going to use this. I'm just going to watch like one show. It was the morning show, and I got addicted. And I, of course, when a subscriber period was up, I just didn't cancel it. And I ended up finding so many shows that I love on Apple TV Plus that I decided to keep it. And now I'm in it for the long haul. So the two shows that I wanted to talk about, first is Severance. And I feel like everybody's talking about Severance, so I'm not going to say too much about it. It's a sort of a surreal show. If you have no tolerance for weirdness, don't bother watching it because it's weird. But I think it's weird in the best way. It's really smart and it's funny in like a really dark way. And the premise of the show is there's a way that they literally sever people's brains so that they surgically, not how they do it
Not
really important to the show, but not like in Saw. Yeah, no, it's an insertion of a chip rather than an actual cutting. But anyway, your mind is severed so that when you're at work, you have no knowledge or memory of your home life, and when you're at home, you have no knowledge or memory of your work life. So in a sense, you're severed into two separate people, and all of the things that you think could go wrong with that do. And in surprising ways. And I just, if it sounds like too weird of a premise for you, too out there, then don't watch it. But if that interests you, I definitely recommend it. And I'm always wary of overhyping shows that I love because nothing ever lives up to like extreme hype. But just check out Severance. And if it doesn't grab you by the first episode, then so be it. The other one I want to talk about is For All Mankind, which I think it might be one of the best shows on TV right now across any streaming network anywhere. And it's one of the few that I actually watch like as soon as it drops because I need to. So the premise of the show is it's the space race starting from, the late 60s when the Americans and the Russians, in real life, the Americans and Russians were sort of racing to see who would get to the moon first. And but this is an alternate reality show. So things don't go exactly the same way that they went in real life, and things just get more different from there. And it goes through time, like right now we're in the 1990s and 1994 to be exact. And things have gone completely differently in the world. And it's just, but some things still stay the same, interestingly enough. And some things that went differently are just totally random. Like in this timeline, John Lennon was never shot, for example. That's a very minor spoiler because it doesn't have anything to do with the show. But they'll just show like newsreels, and you just see all the things that are the same and all the things that are different. It's just kind of fun. But it's I guess you could call it sci-fi / fantasy, but it's I guess realistic fiction, you could say, but on an alternate timeline. But the thing that some people don't like about it is some people go into it expecting a pure sci-fi thriller type show. It is that, but it's also a soap opera. So keep that in mind. There's like a lot of interpersonal stuff, and it does get a bit soapy at times, which I don't mind. I have a pretty high tolerance for soapiness, but as long as it's smartly written and well acted, which it is. The acting on the show, the writing on the show is phenomenal.
For All Mankind is like one of like a myriad list of things I should watch on Apple TV Plus. As you're about to find out, I have only seen one show on Apple TV Plus, but For All Mankind is like definitely one I want to see. And it was like a headline when Apple TV Plus first came out, along with C in the Morning Show, like Kara mentioned. It's also a great one to watch right now because we are literally in the middle of season 3, airing its kind of weekly episode, and season 3 is correct if I'm wrong, Karen, is season 3 the final season of For All Mankind, or do we not know that yet?
I don't know.
I might be thinking of C. We know that. C definitely is a 3 seasons.
C is ending.
Done. But right now, season 3 of For All Mankind is coming out on a weekly basis. So if you've not seen it and you were to start season 1 and 2, by the time you finish those first 2 seasons, you probably also have season 3 ready to watch as well. So now is a great time to get into For All Mankind if you haven't already, and it's definitely one I want to.
And I don't think it's going to be.
TV.
I don't think it's going to be 3 seasons and done. I think there's a lot more story to tell.
Well, in
Like I said,
alternate
we're only
reality,
up
you
to the
can just
night.
keep going, can't you? Yeah.
Right, and like we're only up to 1994, so we have to see, what's going to happen next, or almost up to your lifetime, Stephen. Almost.
Oh, almost. You're not there yet, but you will.
I believe
Maybe next season.
I believe it's already been greenlit for a season 4, if I remember correctly. I think I like, don't take my absolute word on that, but I'm pretty sure I remember reading that before, that it was already greenlit for a 4th season. But maybe I'm lying.
Oh, no,
Stephen,
right.
what is
literally this week it was renewed for season 4? So
boom, there we go.
Was right now.
Stephen,
what's
the one show on Apple TV Plus you've seen?
I hate to be cliche, but the one TV show I've seen on Apple TV Plus is, of course, Ted Lasso. So that is what I'm going to recommend. If you haven't got onto Ted Lasso already, I don't know what you've been doing with your life, but like, please do, because
is there anyone who hasn't seen it yet?
Well, you'd be surprised. I mean, there's a lot of people who don't even have Apple Plus, kind of like we said. But Ted Lasso is one of like the few shows that has transcended Apple TV Plus. So you hear people talking about Ted Lasso in kind of like a mainstream cultural context. And so if you don't know about Ted Lasso, there will be some of you, I know. It started off back in actually like 2013 as like an NBC character. So when NBC in America was covering Premier League football, soccer, they would use this skit of Ted Lasso, who was like a college football coach in the US, who ended up being the coach of in the NBC shows like Tottenham Hotspur. And of course, the joke was he knew nothing about football. Like it was a complete joke. And then Apple has taken that, turned it into a. Oh, there you go. Soccer, turned it into a TV Plus show. And then the premise of this one is what happens. So, like I said, it was Tottenham Hotspur in the old one. In the new Apple TV one, it's a fictional club called AFC Richmond, and the owner, Rebecca, the new owner, she gets divorced from her husband, Rupert, who was the owner of the club, and then because he cheated on her, and so out of spite, Rebecca decides to hire Ted Lasso, who has no soccer coaching experience whatsoever, in order to like torpedo the team and get revenge and get back at him. And so it's basically the story of Ted Lasso come to the UK with his companion coach Beard. Ted has also just gone through a divorce, so he's kind of dealing with that. And it's him, meeting the team, getting to grips with the rules of soccer, living in London, all those different things. And I think the reason Ted Lasso did so well, I think because when it came out, which was in like lockdown last year, I think, in 2020. Gosh, it's been so long. Because of that, I think it was just a feel-good show that people needed at the time. So it's very kind of back and forth. It ranges from like stupidity and hilarity. It's very British in its humor, which is why I'm surprised that it's done so well abroad, because a lot of those very British humor shows don't tend to do so well outside of Britain because people just don't get them. But it's very, very funny, but very British. But then it also kind of pendulum swings to very deep, very emotional, quickly, sometimes too quickly. It can be like a bit of a roller coaster, and you don't really know like kind of how you're supposed to feel kind of at different points. But there's lots of very interesting, very funny characters. Ted, of course, Coach Beard, like I said, Coach Nate and his arc is all very interesting. Rebecca, Keeley, Roy Kent. So the footballers themselves, they are hilarious. So yeah, highly, if you haven't seen it already, highly recommend Ted Lasso. The great thing about it as well, there's a bunch of seasons to watch, and the episodes are really, really short. So if you don't want to sit down and like trawl through like a Sea or For All Mankind, this is a very like you could eat this while watching your dinner very quickly. Like it's so yeah, if you've not
or
yet,
you could watch it while eating your dinner.
Did I say eat this while watching your dinner? It's been a long week. Yeah, you could watch this while eating your dinner. You can try and eat it while watching your dinner, but it will go cold. So that is my my very quick elevator pitch for Ted Lasso. Check it out if you haven't already. I know there won't be many, but if you haven't, you should.
Yeah. I agree with everything that you said, including the reason for its popularity, that it came out during COVID. And people needed something that wasn't so dark like most television.
It's a real gateway drug to Apple TV Plus. I think it's like the thing that people get Apple TV Plus for is I'm going to watch Ted Lasso, and they're like, well, I've got it now, so I might try something else. So
And it's from creator Bill Lawrence, who's like specifically
Scrubs.
specifically
Genius.
known for making comedies that are also very poignant and very like depressing at times.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
Scrubs, for example.
That is a great flag. So if you've not seen Ted Lasso, you're not sure about. If you like Scrubs, you will love Ted Lasso because, as Luke said, same creator, quite similar, very different stories and concepts, but very similar in terms of style. If you don't like Scrubs, you'll probably hate Ted Lasso as well.
Yeah, that's probably If so, that's a good suggestion. I also like Steven. I've seen a lot of first seasons of shows, but I haven't gotten around to actually like getting past it. The one I have though is the morning show, which interestingly enough hasn't really caught on that well. I think it's it's a bit of a hard subject matter. It's obviously, if you don't know, the premise is it's essentially an office, who does a morning show, like a morning news show, like Good Morning America, something that sort of esque style. And at the very beginning, one of the big hosts, Steve Carell's character, who I forget his name at the moment, but he gets fired for like sexual misconduct in the workplace. And that's kind of all the team hears at first. They don't hear about what happened or what, and you're sort of thrown into this like office culture that is like dealing with the reckoning around this like sort of not really well kept secret, as you start to find out that certain characters have known, and like who sort of protected him, who didn't, like who benefited from his activity, who didn't. And it's like, I think the acting's really well. I think that's my biggest point for it is I think like the leads, especially like Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon, Steve Carell, Billy Crudup, all do like an amazing job. There is some pacing issues. It definitely, like the first couple, if you're just getting into the show, I'll even admit, like even as a fan of the show, the first couple episodes are kind of janky. They're a little hard to get into. The writing isn't 100% where I think it gets to in the series. But it gets better and it gets more interesting, and the revelations that come from this bombshell that's been thrown into this workplace is really interesting. And I think it doesn't shy away from some of the uglier parts of humanity. It is a bit depressing in that way, but I think it's a really interesting character study, and I think like it really deals with like all these different aspects of like how this one person's actions can kind of ripple through an entire group of people. And it's really interesting. And I think like where they go with it and how the characters kind of evolve from it, and some of the revelations they have about themselves and like the others around them is really interesting. And I think there's really interesting character dynamics. It's definitely not a show for everyone. Like you have to like some like pretty kind of like meaty drama. You kind of have to embrace that a little bit. But I think if you do, and you can get past the first couple episodes, which I will admit are a little uneven in terms of storytelling, but I think it really does escalate. Like the end of season 1, I won't spoil anything, but the end of season 1 was one of the best endings for a show I've seen in a while. Like I really wanted to see season 2 after season 1 ending. Like it ended so strong. And I think that's one of the reasons why I did come back when season 2 was launched, and I did like get into it right away, was because like the season 1 ending was so strong that like I just wanted more. I wanted to see what happened after that climax. So I think it's really, I think it's interesting. I think it's a subject that obviously in society we're dealing with a lot now, right? Like the Me Too movement, and just, finally maybe getting to a place where people can call out this horrible behavior that happens in some workplaces, and it actually maybe gets dealt with. I don't think we're a perfect society by any means, and we have a long way to go, but it's really, poignant of where we are in our, in kind of our society right now. And I think it's an important show. I think it highlights a lot of interesting facets that you wouldn't think about. Just, from, if you hear all these high profile cases in the news of, like your Harvey Weinsteins and all that sort of things, you kind of obviously are like, oh, that sucks. But I think like diving into the grittiness of like how many people that stuff affects and how the rippling, the after effects of it, even after Steve Carell gets fired. Like he gets fired in the first episode, and the whole show is about like this reckoning that's coming to this workplace. And I think it's really interesting. It really kind of hits the nail on the head, and I think it has some important stuff to say. So I think if you don't mind like a bit of a heavier drama, I think it has some really great acting in it, some acting performances that are great. I think the character dynamics are really interesting, and there is genuine surprises throughout the show. Like there's some things.
One thing I really like.
Don't see coming.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you on all counts. And one thing that I really like about it is how much gray area there is. Like from the first episode, you're like, okay, bad guy, good guy, good guy. And then that all gets kind of turned around and jumbled throughout the show. So you have to have a lot of stomach for gray areas. Some people like their show is very black and white. This is the good guy. This is the bad guy. This is not your show.
Yeah, and that's true, and I think like that's often life. Like life doesn't necessarily have black and white. Life has a lot of gray, and I think that is one of the reasons why I do like this, is because it really sort of explores that gray area a lot, and giving characters a lot of different facets. And yeah, I agree. At the beginning, it's like you're like, oh, okay, good guy, bad guy, whatever, and you kind of like put everybody in your own little box for storytelling reasons. And then as it goes on, you're like, oh, why is this person who I like doing this weird thing all of a sudden? Or why is this person I hate doing something that seems so admirable all of a sudden? And it's very interesting. It definitely plays with your preconceived notions a lot, I think. Which I think is good. I think it's a show that challenges people, I think, in a lot of ways. So, you have to have not everybody wants to sit down and really think about a show and kind of feel that. And I get that. Like TV is a great form of escapism, and I love my escapism. So don't get me wrong. But if you like something a little more realistic, a little more like down to earth, a little more like kind of in the thick of something going on in our society, I think the morning show is a good call. Just like trust me that it gets better. It gets better like after the first couple episodes. The first couple episodes are a little but like just get past that. Get past like the first 2 or 3 and you're like golden. It's great after that for sure. So
I think we accidentally covered all bases there. I think there's something for everyone. We didn't plan that, but it's worked out well.
Yeah. If you want, yeah, totally. Yeah. But yeah, that brings us to the end of the time. We ran a little over, but hey, we finally got to talk about some Apple TV shows. If you liked this, let us know. We'll definitely do it again at not necessarily every week kind of thing, but as new shows come out and stuff, we can always talk a bit about it. We do love what we've been seeing on Apple TV Plus. Let us know what your favorite show is. You can always hit us up on Twitter at iMore or on Instagram at iMoregram. And until next week, that's been the iMore Show. Thanks for listening. We appreciate everybody who commented along, told us about their MacBook Airs that they were getting, asked us questions about rumors. We really, really love being able to interact with you guys. Everybody who's listening to this in your podcatcher of choice, thank you so much for listening along. We've been doing this, as you may have remembered, we've been doing this for 800 episodes now. We're super excited to keep the legacy going, keeping the show going, and talking to all of you every week. Thank you, Jim Metzendorf, for our audio editor, who always makes us sound so good. And until next week, we will say goodbye.
Bye, everybody.